you know it's a good piece of legislation because every single Democrat hates it. And the reason they hate it is because this bill actually empowers Americans.
You know, if there was good reason to vote for Donald Trump's disastrous budget bill, this disastrous budget bill that's going to rob, I'll get into those details. But if there was good reason, Republicans would be making those reasons. Instead, it's lie after lie after lie after lie. Or in the case of Jim Jordan in this clip I'm getting ready to show you, it's just, yeah, we got to vote for it to own the libs. We got to vote for it because Democrats hate it. It's unserious people. That's not a reason to vote for legislation that will impact hundreds of millions of American families. It's not a reason. But leave it to Jim Jordan to say that's his justification. It's just unflinching fealty, loyalty, worshipfulness of Donald Trump. If Donald Trump bent over and said, hey, reach inside my ass and just fish around in there, Jim Jordan, you'd see he'd be rolling up his sleeves and it'd be easy because he never wears a jacket, right? Watch him just be as ghoulish as he can on CNN, giving his justification, his motivation to vote for this abomination.
Yeah, good to be with you,
and I do want to ask you, in that context, it is Freedom Caucus members who are very concerned about this bill. I'm old enough to remember when, if there was a bill on the floor that added this much to our debt and deficit, I cannot imagine you would have been happy about it in those years. And yet, you have been approaching this a little bit differently. What is your message to your colleagues in that group right now?
Look, we all wish it'd save more money, but you know this is a good bill, and I tell people all the time, you know it's a good piece of legislation because every single Democrat hates it. And the reason they hate it is because this bill actually empowers Americans. It empowers families. It cuts their taxes. It keeps their taxes low. It says to the hardworking people who are working and getting tips, we're not going to tax those tips. It says to parents, we're going to give you school choice in our tax code. It says the border that's now secure under President Trump, we're going to allocate resources to keep it secure. And maybe most importantly, or as importantly, is it says to hardworking American families who are paying for all this government, for people who are getting a benefit in the welfare system, if they're able-bodied adults, guess what? From now on, they're going to have to work. So I think it's good for all those common sense, fundamental Republican principles. That's why the Democrats don't like it. While it doesn't cut enough spending, I get it, but we got small majorities, and this is probably as good as it's going to get. So I am certainly for this piece of legislation.
Admitting that it doesn't do the thing he says the reason to vote for it is because every single Democrat hates it. That statement was preceded by, we all wish it saved more money. Yeah, it's going to bankrupt our grandkids, which we act like is a big deal, but it makes the Democrats mad. That's why we do it. Here is what this bill will do. On Medicaid, this is from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, the Senate Republican bill would cut Medicaid by nearly $1 trillion compared to $800 billion in the House Republican bill. The deeper cuts translate into larger harmful impacts. The bill would also expand the House Republican bill's provision that takes Medicaid coverage away from people who don't meet a red tape-laden work requirement by applying it to parents enrolled through the Medicaid expansion who have children older than 13. And it doesn't get any better on food assistance, on the aspect of what the Republicans want to do to hungry children. There will be an impact on more than 40 million people who receive basic food assistance through SNAP, including some 16 million children, 8 million seniors, and 4 million non-elderly adults with disabilities, all of whom would be affected by the cuts in this bill. Most states would be required to pay 5 to 15% of food benefits, and if a state can't make up for these massive federal cuts with tax increases or spending cuts elsewhere in its budget, it would have to cut its SNAP program, such as by restricting eligibility or making it harder for people to enroll, or it could opt out of the program altogether, terminating food assistance entirely in the state. Here is a Blue Sky post from Brittany Page talking about Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania's response on this. Governor Josh Shapiro on the harm Trump's budget will cause the nearly 2 million Pennsylvanians receiving SNAP benefits. Quote, there's a real question as to whether or not we'd even be able to operate SNAP any longer, given the change in the formula and given the people that are going to be knocked off. This is the reason not to vote for the bill. Jim Jordan, the reason to vote for it isn't because Democrats hate it. This is the reason Democrats hate it. This is the reason you should hate it. You self-described patriot. It is amazing to me, these Republicans, they hate America. You can't hate Americans and want to harm inextricably Americans while claiming that you love America. Those two things are incompatible. Let's move on to the rich gaining and the poor absolutely being decimated by this bill. A June analysis of the House bill by Congressional Budget Office, for instance, found resources for the poorest would decrease by about $1,600 per year under the legislation, largely due to cuts to Medicaid and food aid, which would be more aggressive under the Senate bill. Meanwhile, the wealthiest would gain an average of $12,000. Another report from the Yale Budget Lab suggests the bottom fifth of earners would lose about $560 per year, while the top 20% would gain $6,000. And now look, that may not seem a lot to you because you're probably not the poorest among us. But if you are the poorest among us, and I've been in this situation, $1,600 is the difference between life and death. It's the difference between eating or not. It's the difference between your child being able to go to school or to daycare or not. This will harm Americans. As Jim Jordan makes his fucking jokes about Democrats all hate it, so let's vote for it. And it gets worse. They plan to harm people with disabilities in this country. Medicaid provides health coverage, including for home and community-based services, for about 15 million people with disabilities, representing over 1/3 of all people with disabilities, according to KFF. The House Republicans' health agenda also targets the ACA marketplaces, which provide coverage and financial assistance to more than 20 million people, including people with disabilities. The legislation fails to extend the expiring enhanced premium tax credits for marketplace coverage, which will lead to skyrocketing premiums. And if that is not enough, if you are someone who these arguments and these statistics don't sway, how about the fact that we are ushering in a next level police state? We have Donald Trump's masked, unidentified secret police roving the streets of the United States in their mission of mass deportation, sending people to gulags and concentration camps outside of the borders of the United States to be tortured, like Kilmar Obrego Garcia, which I'm going to be talking about later today, but also constructing concentration camps within the border of the United States. And this bill will add billions to that. As Don Moynihan notes, ICE's annual budget for detentions would skyrocket from $3.4 billion in the present fiscal year to $45 billion until the end of the 2029 fiscal year, a 365% increase, and a figure that outstrips the combined funding for all 50 federal prisons. I'm going to read that again because that is a stark reminder of exactly where we will be if this budget passes. A figure, the $45 billion, that outstrips the combined funding of all 50 federal prisons. The ICE detention budget is larger than the total budget of USAID used to be. The ICE detention budget increase is larger than cuts in education or for SNAP in the big, beautiful bill. It is larger than cuts to NIH, CDC, and cancer research combined. It is on the scale of the type of supplemental budgets that the U.S. passed when engaged in foreign wars. But the Democrats hate it, so let's vote for it. Listen, It is not hyperbole. It's not just me being bombastic when I call these fucking people ghouls. They want to harm the voiceless simply because they're voiceless. They want to harm poor people because they don't have the means to speak up. They're so focused already on survival that they don't get involved in politics. Jim Jordan is one of these ghouls. Do better, Ohio. Do better than electing these bootlicking, ass-kissing yes-men, sycophants, bootlickers, cult members of Donald Trump. They will harm you for the sake of Donald Trump, for the sake of being in the good graces of the dear leader. It's disgusting. Midterms cannot come quick enough. Anyway, what do you think? I invite you to this conversation. You can comment below in the comment section. That'll help the algorithm to find this content worthy to share to others. I would appreciate that very much. You can also call the voicemail line. Leave me a fewer than 3-minute voicemail, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. Please consider supporting this work, this effort that I put on a daily basis. For $2 a month, you can help me produce these videos and reach the audience that I do. I would appreciate that very much. You can click the join button below for $2 a month, become a channel member. You can also go over to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. Great ways to help support this work. You can go to Dollemore.com, buy some merch. We just released a children's book a few months ago called The Grateful Child. Gratitude. We need to find it where we can, right? Anyway, I love and appreciate you very much. I'll see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another.